All right, can you guys see what's up on the screen there? Let's see. All right, looks good. All right, guys. Well, welcome to the gTool DRS demo here. Also joining me is Luke. You'll see him, Luke Henson, down there in the chat box. He's from Australia. He's part of the gTool team. He's going to be hanging out in the chat and answering, any kind of questions that you guys have. So anytime you have a question or anything, just type it away in the chat. I'm going to be going over. My name is Vince. I'm just going to be talking about, the system as the demo goes on. If there's anything that Luke doesn't know the answer to, he's going to jump on here and unmute himself and kind of ask me to clarify for you guys. So we appreciate you guys again joining us for this demo. We know that gTool has been up and down with things over the past couple of years. So we appreciate you guys sticking by us. We've taken the last 18, I guess it's really 19 months now, and over $1.5 million in research and development in the system. So we've kind of taken some time away from developing other things and have focused entirely on this unit. So this is the 5th iteration of the prototype that you guys are seeing here. This is what the mass production unit is based on. However, there are 70 changes from this prototype that you guys are seeing to mass production unit. So the final production unit will actually be much nicer and better than this one. But we just wanted to give people an idea of what you're looking at for demos. So this demo here is going to start with the iPhone 6, and it's going to go through the iPhone 7 and then the S8 Plus. You'll see that there's a phone with a timer on down there. So that's just to show you guys, the time throughout all of these processes. These videos are uncut. However, the only way that they are edited in any way is that they are sped up some throughout processes. So you'll see his hands move faster and stuff like that, or if it's just a machine running on its own or something like that, I'll let you guys know that the process is sped up throughout that time and then actually what the time was in that machine. So I'll go ahead and start here. And now you should see moving on the screen. If you don't, say something. So the phones that he's doing here today are all original phones that have not been refurbished before in the past. The system is capable of doing phones that have been refurbished prior to this, but we don't recommend doing copy screens at all. So some might work, but we don't recommend it. We don't guarantee them, anything like that. So you'll start every refurb, with just a testing, whether it's on the consumer's phone or on a test phone or something like that. Then he's going to give a snip off at these bottom points here, and it's just to make some of the processes easier as it goes on, although it's not absolutely necessary to do that. Yeah, so this is recorded start to finish. We have 3 of these demos a day. And it would just be really hard because George here is in South Africa, Luke's in Australia, and I'm in the US, so it would be difficult to time it all. So what you just put that in there is called DRM, which is called the Display Restore Module. So the DRM is a spring-loaded system that's going to hold the backlight against the back of the LCD. And what that does is, for anyone that has any familiarity with refurbishing in the past, is when these screens come out of these freeze machines, whether it be liquid nitrogen or cryogenic like this one, the seal that kind of seals the backlight to the LCD will get so hard that it'll separate, allowing air and condensation in, and then when that condensation comes back up to room temperature, then your backlight's what it damaged. So then you're actually replacing a backlight, which is time consuming, can cost an astronomical amount of money when you get up into the 7 and 7 Plus, and it's just overall a pain in the butt. So the DRM really is a heart to the system here, and it saves a whole lot of money overall. So that little block plate down there is just a heating pad. As you guys will hear throughout this process, that heating pad there is connected to all of the systems. So anything that comes out of that freeze machine, that heating pad knows exactly what particular phone that is and will program itself to the proper heat. So after that's been in that system about a minute, he's going to open up the top of the DRM there, the Display Restore Module, and he's going to spray it. All he's spraying it with is just pure water. So it's cold enough now that when he sprays it, it's going to form an ice sheet almost instantly over the top there. And what that's doing is it's actually bonding all of that glass together. Oh, someone's drawing all over the screen there. So what that is it bonds all that glass together, and then when it goes back in here for the next 5 minutes or so, it's actually going to form like a really rock hard sheet. It's going to keep all that glass together, so when we go to remove it, it's going to come off nice and easy. So this part of the process is sped up here, as you guys can see. It's in the system for about 5 minutes. So the freeze machine is very, very energy efficient. It only uses 120 watts compared to the nearly 3,300 watts that Chinese NO2 systems use. It's about 25 pounds, and it's nearly silent as opposed to a couple 100 pounds of the other systems out there. All right, so what he has there is the screen split. So he gave a little twist at the bottom. He's sliding a plastic sheet in, and then the handle comes off of that screen split there. And what that does is it leaves that plastic sheet between the glass and OCA and your LCD. So you can't just unhinge the DRM right now because it's still so cold that backlight would separate. So he needs to let it come back up to temperature. But the problem with letting it come back up to temperature after you split the screen is that the OCA is going to come back to temperature as well and bond back to the LCD. So by sliding that sheet in there, you're able to let the system come back to temperature so that the backlight won't open up and let condensation in, while at the same time keeping some sort of barrier between that glass and OCA that's there. So for those of you that have refurbished in the past before, this next little process here is going to be pretty cool to see. So there's no more, twisting and shoving cards in and stuff like that and trying to, get the pieces of glass off and everything like that. So it comes off in one nice sheet because we sprayed the water on it, because we're letting it come back to temperature, and because we have that nice plastic sheet in between that. So just like that, you have a separated LCD. So the next step in this process here is only done at this point in time with 6+ and below screens. It has to do with the composition of the OCA that ranges between the different models of the iPhones. We are working on using the same process for the Samsungs. We're just in testing for that right now and getting proper molds for it. And we'll talk more about that when the Samsung's come. So we still got some itty pieces of glass around the edges there, as well as quite a bit of OCA around the edges of the bottom. So what he's going to do is he's just going to place what we sell at this consumable is a OCA removing sheet. It's a porous sheet with a little bit of a chemical in it. The chemical is not harmful or anything like that. And all we do is apply heat and pressure in the screen vac system. And that's going to draw that OCA up into that porous sheet there, which will actually remove not all, but 99% of that OCA in one nice sheet. So for this particular process in the screen vac here, you are not charged. It's only in here for about a minute, and it's part of this. It's part of the process for an iPhone 6 to 6 Plus. So you'll see once we move on to the iPhone 7 demo about how much extra OCA actually came off during our first process there. And that's really common. Not every iPhone 6 or 6 Plus, you're going to have to do this process. Some of them will pull all of it off. Some of them will leave a lot more OCA than you saw on that one. So it really does range between particular instance of what you're looking at for this particular process. So you can see we're at about 10 minutes right now. So it's worth noting that throughout this entire process, George is obviously doing one screen at a time and sort of slowly to show you guys all the different steps and processes so I can sit here and talk about them as it goes on. But these systems do run completely independent of one another. So you could be using the screen freeze machine right now for another phone. It doesn't have to be also an iPhone 6. It could be anything you wanted. You could also be cleaning a device now. You could be running something in the screen vac. So you can use this system in many different ways at the same time to actually improve efficiency. So you'll see him peel this sheet off and all of that OCA come off in one nice sticky sheet down there at the bottom. So you can see it got 98, 99% of the majority of the OCA off. And the goal of that is you know, we wanted to reduce how many chemicals were used throughout this process. It was really important to us to not have, you know, harsh, harmful chemicals that are around all the time, as well as we didn't want to take, you know, like plastic or razor blades or anything like that a lot of people use to the LCDs and potentially scratch the polarizers. So with this process here, we're able to, you know, reduce the amount of chemicals that are used throughout the process, as well as keep that LCD safe. So hopefully we won't have to replace the polarizer ever. And now he's just going to go through a standard cleaning process. That's just 99% alcohol. It's just sped up by about 2, as you can see. So for anyone that's done refurbishing before, this is pretty standard. It's just, you know, a nice rub down. There are other chemicals that would do this process faster. But again, we're trying to keep it as safe as possible. If you wanted to use those, you'd be more than welcome to. But we're just sticking to 99% throughout these videos. Now's a good time to ask a question or two if you guys have any, as he sits here and cleans for a second, and it goes through the testing process. Nothing, huh? Quiet chat today. No, I mean, if you were to pour it onto the LCD, then yeah, you have a worry about that. But if you're just getting it on the cloth there, there's no real worry about it leaking down into. The flex cables are never bent more than 90 degrees, which is not an unnatural process for them. So we'll get into you know, protecting flex cables like that and everything. These screens have not been refurbished before, but during testing processes, George has tested refurbished the same screen 9 or 10 times with no issues with the flex cables. So that was really important throughout all of this, is the flex cables don't get damaged at all. And you'll see throughout this, and we'll touch on it, that there's no real area where that would happen. All right, so the next thing you're going to see him do here is we are going to go into the dust-free chamber. Note that our competitors and stuff don't actually have a dust-free enclosure included with any of their systems. So this dust-free enclosure, the one you guys are seeing, again, is the final prototype. You'll notice that when he goes in, the edges of the system actually rotate. And the reason for that is it allows you to use the system sitting or standing up. We know that different people have different methods of doing things, as well as it gives you a free arm range motion, which is really, really important for trying to design some sort of dust-free enclosure that was very small, but yet required like precision activities. You'll see when he goes over there. I might jump the gun on you guys a little bit. All right. So you can see the sides of the system will start to rotate a little bit as he moves around some. And that will rotate a full 360 if for some reason you want to. So you can see also in that dust-free system that at back it's got a little area to hold your consumables to kind of stay out of your way. It also has a couple fans built in with HEPA filters, as well as an ionizer. So the ionizer will negatively charge the air that's inside to draw dust particles to it as the fans filter everything throughout this system here. Again, very low energy. The final production model will have an LED light bar at the top to help kind of see dust as you rotate that screen and get you some good reflection going on. So you'll notice that he touched just the middle of the screen there. So for those that don't have any sort of refurbishing experience, the reason that he does that is it helps draw all the air from the center going outward when it goes into the screen back system here. If you were to just like push down straight on it, you might seal some of the edges. And that OCA is really sticky, and it's going to make it much more difficult to actually pull that air out. So we are going into the screen back here. Yeah, OCA is pre-installed on all of the iPhone glass. We'll talk a lot more in depth about the consumables, the quality, all that sort of stuff as we get to the end, the pricing and everything. So the screen vac has 5 major functions: heat, vacuum, air pressure, physical pressure, and UV light. Excuse me, guys. So as in one chamber, it can do all those things. It makes the system very unique compared to others. This part is sped up, by the way. It's about 5 minutes in here. Because we can run whatever we want to run in any order that we want to run it to, any degree that we want to run it to. So whenever a new phone or anything comes out, we can program this system to it, apply an over-the-air update, and make sure that that system is running exactly as we want it to for that particular device. We don't use logo on the Samsungs. We'll talk about that when we hit the Samsungs. So it sits in that system for about 5 minutes, and then this screen is done. So he's going to zoom in here and show you guys that there aren't any bubbles or anything like that. That it tests properly. So if you guys have any questions about what you've seen so far, or questions on things that I've described, now is also a good time to ask that. Well, that just depends on the copy type. Most copies nowadays, the digitizer is actually built into the glass. So as soon as you separate it, you would have an LCD without any sort of touch panel on it. And that's why you can't send in copy screens for refurbs to other companies, is because you can't actually do them. So back in the day, copies used to be able to be refurbished. So occasionally you'll find ones like that. But being able to determine which one is kind of a difficult process. You really have to know what you're looking for, and we just don't recommend that copies are done at all. That's very, I mean, you're going to look for what the original signs are. So a ring around the front camera, you know, the logos that are on the flex cables. So I know there's bunches of sites and stuff like that, and you will want to converse with what makes an original screen compared to a copy. I'm sure that's something that we'll post on our website as well, gtoolusa.com, as soon as it's completed, which is dedicated entirely to the DRS system. There's all the differences so that you guys don't run something through the system that you shouldn't be. That's a good idea. Luke, if you'll notate that down to do that, that would be, I'm sure, helpful for a lot of people. All right. So here we have an iPhone 7. It's going to be a similar process to what you guys just saw with a few differences. So this will really touch on, you know, the importance that we have on the flex cables here throughout this, you know, that it's not bent outward awkwardly or anything like that that might damage it. So this is going to go into the DRM as well. We had two size DRMs, one for the smaller model phones and one for the larger model phones. So you'll see this will hold this flex cable down real nice here in its natural position. All right, I'm just going to drop this into the screen freeze here, again for about a minute. So it's going to come out after a minute. He's going to spray it off with water again. This will be a good chance throughout all of these processes here, since you've kind of seen it, to talk more about the screen freeze machine. So the screen freeze machine actually gets down to -196 at the tip of the cryogenic engine. The cryogenic engine is a closed-loop helium system. It does not need to be refilled at any point in time. It does come from a military manufacturing facility that builds those for other reasons. So it is very, very high quality. It's not from China. It does have a 12-year lifespan, as well as we do carry a 2-year warranty on that engine, as well as the entire system overall. So because it can get to -196 compared to a lot of what the liquid nitrogen systems get to, which is about -150, it makes the actual plate that's there much, much colder. So you do have a bit of thermal loss that's on the plate there. So at our plate, it actually measures about -180, where the NO2 systems actually measure at about -130. So it does have about a 50-degree difference, which is really, really substantial when you're looking for consistency, or you're working on Samsung screens, or any of these phones that are a little bit thicker, like the 6S and 7 and 7 Plus and stuff like that have 3D touch built into them. The thicker the screen, the more energy it takes to actually cool down, because there's more of it there. So there's quite a bit of extra thermal loss that happens. So when this goes down onto this plate, the plate reads 180, but it's actually going to drop to about -130 within this system. So you can imagine what happens to the NO2 systems that start at about -130, what they actually drop to when they're being used. So this could come out really quickly, and we could be done and cracking it and moving on. But what George wanted to do is he wanted to make sure that as this system dropped down to 130, that right now it's actually recovering back to -180 within the system. So as soon as the system opens up, that plate is back at -180 again, and you can drop another screen on, and you're going to have really consistent results, because everything's going to start at 180 and everything's going to end at 180. And that really helps with splitting things and making sure all the glass comes off in one sheet and all these sorts of things. So it is a little more time consuming, but it helps, as the system was designed for a retail repair shop, and people who are actually working on customers' devices and stuff like that. That consistency, ease of use, and stuff like that was really, really important. So you'll see him kind of give that push and that crack down at the bottom. And all it's doing is opening up a gap for him to stick this screen split into. So those sheets, those screen split sheets, can be used multiple times. And that's just going to be something that you're going to have to determine, as the user, if you want to use that one again. So it's going to depend how stretched or how many pieces of glass are on it or something like that. And you can wipe them down and clean it off. They are pretty cheap. It's just a piece of plastic that we sell in batches of 20. So it's up to you guys to decide if you want to keep reusing them or toss it after a few times, or whatever the case is. So Reed, you can see at the top of this iPhone 7 where that camera hole is, that there's a little piece of foam that's going around it. So that would be a good indicator for, I think it's the 6S's and up for the iPhones, that it's an original screen, seeing that foam ring around that camera hole there. I'm not sure. I want to say they're I don't know. I don't want to give it misinformation. If I were to guess, they're probably like a quarter a piece or something like that. If you're smart about it, you could use it 10, 20 times. Look how nicely that one came off. So if it was me, I would save ones for ones that were screens that weren't damaged very much at all. And then you could have one you could just reuse nonstop. And then just use the ones on their broken screens only a few times. So you can see again that that flex cable there is at most bent 90 degrees, which is actually how that flex is created in the factory. So as long as it doesn't really bend beyond that, you're not in really danger of anything. A lot of those Chinese systems will bend them out where they're completely parallel with the screen, and that's when you start getting into some real danger there. So you can see that he doesn't need to do the OCA removing process with this one because it removed literally 95% of the OCA straight out of the system with the screen freeze there. So right now it does iPhone 8 through the 8 Plus, or iPhone 5 through the 8 Plus. We're still working on getting consumables for the 8 Plus because it's so brand new, but we were able to successfully pull apart and refurbish the first ones we got in the system within a couple hours. It also does the S7 Edge, S8, and S8 Plus. We are working on the flat model Samsungs that'll also be done in frame, but we just wanted to get this system out there, and we wanted to start on the screens that were most expensive and were most difficult through other refurbishing systems. And as we said, this is really designed for a retail repair shop, although refurbishing centers can use it. And we know that most people that will come in with an S7 Edge or an S8 or S8 Plus are usually walking out the door because you're pouring them too much money. So we hope that by launch, we should have most of those flat model Samsungs done, if not by the end of the year. The time frame for those, generally, we would guess to be about a month. Obviously, we haven't hit that yet. We've gotten a brand new model. The iPhone 8 was easier because the LCD was the same as the 7 and 7 Plus, so that was pretty simple for us to really work around. But we got to get a phone in, a few phones. We got to start testing them. We got to break them and start trying to refurb them and test them, and then get a mold in, and then test it with that, and then send the molds out to you guys. So that being said, talking about sending molds out, every sort of software and hardware update that happens within the system that will be included at that particular time with the system, if you were to buy it new, is included to you guys for free. So say if you purchase the system today, and next year the Note 9 comes out, and the system would come with a Note 9 mold, we'll send you guys a Note 9 mold for free. So the reason that we do that is we want to make sure that you guys, A, are getting the most financial benefit of the system, because when you are, that means you're using the system, and because the system works on credits, when you guys are using the system, we get paid. So a lot of those credits actually go towards research, innovation, towards hardware updates for you, towards software updates for you. All that sort of stuff is all included for free. So the system really is designed for the future in general. Likewise of us, trying to get you guys new molds all the time and stuff like that. We also have a direct interest of keeping the systems up and running, as much as possible. So we want to use quality parts throughout all these systems. Very few parts are actually from China that have an actual impact on how the system works and stuff like that. So we definitely chose to go quality over price in a lot of these, just to make sure that you guys have something that's reliable. So you guys can see that he's cleaning this off here, and then he's going to lay down that glass and give it another touch in the center. So speaking on the software, and molds and stuff like that, is the system is actually learns as it goes on. So if you guys have a screen that doesn't work in the system or something like that, what you would do is you would take a picture of the screen, a little description of what went wrong with it, and you would submit it in the app. We then start to compile all of that data, and we say, we start having lists of all right, these are all iPhone 7 screens that didn't work, these are iPhone 6s, these are S8s. And then we break it further down into what happened with that particular process through your description. So then as we start to gather data from all over the world about this, we can start to say, all right, all of these sensors in this system read these things for these errors. There are tons of sensors throughout in these systems, and it logs everything that goes on all the time. So if you submit an error, it'll send us all of those log charts. And then we can start to make changes through our testing in-house. And then once we make a change that would correct that particular issue, you push an update to your app. It would say update, version 13 available, corrects these issues, almost like an iPhone or iOS would do. You submit update, and it'll wirelessly update your all systems on the fly. So these systems, again, really do learn But the more that they're used, it is a system that will get smarter over time, and we'll start to reduce errors. So the average cost will depend on there we go. That $10 in labor is probably Australian dollars. And that really goes to depend how efficient you are. If you're just doing one at a time, it takes about 30 minutes. If you're doing 3 at a time, say, we think it could probably be done for someone who wants to be efficient in about 13 minutes or so. Because you could have one in the freeze machine, one being cleaned, one in the screen vac. So we've talked to a lot of people. This is one of our last demos, and it seems to be that most people would use this system on the spot for Samsung screens. Obviously, that's really, it's important to get a customer in and be able to fix their screen and get it out. But for iPhone screens, since there's so many of them, it might be better to kind of hang on to them, and then at the end of your day, or say like on a Sunday after work or something like that, take all of your iPhone screens and do them in batches to be more efficient with them. You don't have to do that. If it was my repair store, that's what I would do. It just seems to be a little quicker and cost a little bit less money. And then you have all these screens that you put aside, and then you restock your store with them, and then you can use them on the fly. So it sits in this system for about 5 minutes, and then when it comes out, it's done. So you guys can see how easy it is to actually use these systems. There's not a whole lot of manual work that's involved. You're going to be cleaning the screen off. You're going to be lifting the screen off of the DRM, and you're going to be laying a piece of glass down, and that's about it. So a lot of these processes, for those that haven't known or seen refurbishing before, you're not really seeing all of the pain in the butt things that we're skipping on this. So we're avoiding replacing a polarizer, removing all of that glue, which is horrendous a lot of times. Laying or rolling new polarizers over, which can damage the LCD cables, applying like thermal paste and waiting for it to dry, and then rolling on an OCA and hoping there's no dust between there and you don't have to do it again. And, it can really be a nightmare depending on which particular way you're refurbishing screens, but we really have taken a lot of the work out of it. So the goal of this was to have something that's very easy to learn, as well as something that's very easy to teach, because we realize that you guys as owners aren't going to be the ones that are sitting here doing this most of the time. So we wanted something that you guys can learn and be able to talk and train your employees on. And then if that employee quits, you want to be able to train the next guy without losing 6 months worth of LCDs in that learning process and stuff like that. So you guys can see there's no condensation in the screen. When it pops up, that it touches normal, color is normal, that there's no flex issues, all that sort of stuff. Samsung screens is adhesive to bond properly on the frame. Can you clarify that, Claudio? Are you talking about the outer frame adhesive? Is that what you're meaning? And are you doing ones that are not frame swaps, right? Are you doing
Can you hear me?
LED pulls that you're pulling onto there?
Are you able to hear me?
Do what?
Test. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So one of the issues is we refurbish the edge screens, but you guys are going to be doing them in the frame, right?
Yes.
Any of the Samsung ones, you keep them in the bezel. One of the issues right now, we had to start ordering them from China in the frame to come with the battery charging port and so forth, because they come fused and the LCD actually sits better on the frame when it comes from a factory. When
Right.
we try to refurbish them, it'll, after a week and a half, it'll start slightly lifting on a corner.
Yep.
It can lead to the LCD breaking, or customer complaining about it, which sometimes we have to cover it. What's your experience assembling it once you remove the glass and replace the new glass?
We haven't had any issues like that at all. I'm assuming that you're talking about ones that have been assembled onto a frame in China, right? Or are you talking about ones that you're putting without a frame on that you're having this issue with?
So the ones that come from China, we don't have any issues with them.
Okay, yeah.
The ones our guys, because we use the regular 3M that robotic adhesive,
right?
Or we use the ones that you could order pre-cut.
Yeah.
But when we give the device to the customer, it's sealed properly. I guess, just if they leave it in their purse, if they're at the beach, just a little bit too much heat or whatever the reason is, that adhesive would eventually start separating from the bezel. It doesn't happen with the ones that we ordered the complete assembly from China.
So it could be a couple different things, and it's hard to tell without seeing them. Obviously, it could be adhesive quality or the way it's sealed down, but I'm sure if you guys do tons of repairs that it's probably good. It could also be, since you guys lay them down, the ones that don't actually come in the frame, it's how good the seal actually is from the back of the LCD to the frame there, and how flat everything is. Because I know that sometimes they can actually start working themselves up under that, which will in turn like lift all of the edges around the screen actually up, if that makes sense. So the whole unit is actually lifting up very slightly, but the parts that you actually see at the top and the bottoms that connect to the frame there. Again, without seeing it, it's really difficult to give a good answer of why that happens. We've seen it happen in our repair stores too. You can see iExpert Studios on here. That's actually one of my guys for one of my repair stores. And that's why, the same exact reason of why we switched to doing in-frames repairs only on the S7 edges and stuff like that. So we haven't experienced any of those issues with this system because everything is done in-frame. So we don't actually bother any sort of the LCD or the adhesive or the flex or anything that's below. Also, the OCA that we use on this is actually about 50 microns or millimicrons or whatever it is thinner than a standard OCA, which helps keep that glass really settled down into the system. So George has ran these back through heat tests and cold tests and stuff like that to make sure that things don't separate over time. Also to make sure we don't get any sort of those like purple or green lines that come down on the S7 edges. And we haven't really experienced any issues with that. So it's hard to say exactly what may have caused that, but so far we haven't had any of those issues.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah. It's not to say that nothing will ever happen in the future, and that's why we're always open to feedback, and we'll have a forum essentially for you guys to try and hear feedback, to try and continue to improve. So these aren't a systems that we're going to just send out to you guys and be like, good luck. It is really important to us to make sure that we keep up and the system is as good as possible for you guys, because we want you guys to keep using it, because we want to keep getting paid for you guys using it. So we all do have an aligned interest as far as that goes. So what he did here is he just put this S8 Plus into almost a mold. And that's one thing that we did that was nice with this system here. Is any sort of mold that we ever make or anything like that is all external of the system. So the systems will accept anything. So we can send you guys a mold, and then that will lock into the system. And that's one thing that will keep the system fairly future-proof, if you will, is that we can continue to design things that can be used externally. So the reason we used an S8 Plus for this particular demo here is that it is your quote-unquote worst-case scenario of Samsung's that you can do. The reason being is it's the biggest, so it has the most surface area to work with OCA and stuff like that, as well as the OCA composition on the S8 and S8 in particular are more difficult to work with than the models preceding it. So this one's going to take the most amount of time to clean. But you can know right off the bat that, hey, this is the longest that we're going to be looking at for this particular sort of repair. So George has made some improvements since he made this demo about a month ago, both on the cloth that he uses to remove the OCA. He said it cuts the time in about half, as well as he's working on an OCA removing process that we're getting molds for to try and remove the OCA in one fell swoop, kind of like the iPhone 6 at the beginning. But he's waiting on a mold to go in the system to try that. So you can see that he's going to pop this glass off here, and that's one benefit of that system being at -180. This will come off in one nice sheet, and then it'll chip off nice and easy in these corners here. That'll take the OCA with it. So one benefit of the glass not being too broken is that you can get it all off nicely in one sheet pretty easily. But what the not so much benefit of it is you guys can see it left all the OCA underneath it. So it's going to take longer to clean. So if the glass is a little bit more broken, it'll take a little bit longer to get the glass off, but you'll get more OCA off, and vice versa. So no matter how broken the glass is, you're looking at approximately the same time to clean or to work with it. So he's just trying to get the casing off there, but it is metal, and it just kind of shrunk on him and condensed to the phone there. So he's going to let it warm up a little bit before he pulls that off. So you all noticed that he did take the back battery and main logic board out. You can leave in the daughter board, the charging port, all those other components in there. They're not damaged at all throughout this process. When we first initially started testing these, we tested the entire phone without taking anything off, and we were 98% successful. Just some little things that didn't let it work out, but nothing was damaged throughout that process with everything in the phone either. So when things get really, really cold, they don't really get affected too much. So he's going to start wiping all that condensation off, and let the OCA kind of come back to temperature to where you can work with it here. So as mentioned prior, this is something that you guys could have another screen in the freeze machine right now to kind of kick this process up if for some reason you had these in bulk for whatever reason. So both the freeze machine and the screen back are nearly silent as well. During idle, they essentially are silent. And during max load, the screen back makes kind of like a loud hum at best. It's something you could sit next to someone and have a normal talking conversation and not really be interfered with at all. The system were to sit in the back of your store, no one would know that you even had it. So he's going to start trying to wipe this OCA off. It needs to be just a little bit warmer. So everything that you guys see here, yes, Claudia?
One more question. I'm not sure if you answered it. For the consumables, you know, just like besides the cotton sheets, like Polka, would you guys be selling those supplies just to make sure we're using the proper?
So we are. So he's just going to go through the cleaning process here, guys. It starts at about 9.5 minutes for reference. He's just rubbing that OCA off. Again, we do have a better sheet that works that cuts this time in half. But yeah, in general, we will have all these consumables for sale. We do recommend that you guys use the iPhone screens that we have, and we require that you guys use the Samsung screens that we have. So the reason for that is if you guys use all the screens that we have, it removes sort of a variable of what could go wrong with the system. So what we're carrying, and we'll show at the end through some images, are very, very high consumables, high quality consumables at low prices. And that's to encourage you guys to actually buy them from us. Our goal is not to make any money on the consumables, again, because we know if we offer them cheap and they're high quality, you guys will buy them from us. So if something goes wrong with the system, we can reduce that variable of, well, maybe it was an inferior quality screen that they used or something like that. So it allows us, our data, to be a little bit more accurate. But we know that some people have vendors they really like or things that they really want to use. We just won't be able to warrant any sort of thing or refund a credit if there was a failure, if it wasn't a screen that came from us. So just something to keep in mind when you're looking around. We'll talk about the consumable prices and show some pictures at the end to give you guys an idea of what we're working with. Sorry, guys. Time's gone. So you can see that he was about 5 minutes in that process to get the majority of that OCA off. And then he's just going to rub it down with 99% to kind of do the next phase of cleaning here. He is about almost 6 minutes into this process. Keep in mind as well, I guess it's something worth mentioning for sure, is that George had no prior refurbishing experience before developing his systems. So he figured it out, taught himself, built these systems, and started research, testing, and designing all off of almost theory. So Luke and I went down there and about 8-9 months ago when he was in his second or third prototype, and really started to talk to him about our experiences with refurbishing and things he needed to look out for and major pain points and stuff like that really helped him get through the next phases for the next prototypes. But that kind of goes to show of how easy the system really is to learn. If someone can invent, learn, and teach others all on their own. And we'll talk a little bit towards the end here about training aspect of this as well. So this tool here is an ultrasonic pen with a rubber tip. So you can see as he rubs it over things, it kind of just removes stubborn spots of OCA. So again, we wanted to develop or design something here which doesn't really require you to be really abrasive with a cloth or rub any sort of plastic or metal blade over that might damage the polarizer. So again, that tip is just vibrating very fast. It's just a piece of rubber. It just kind of works around and hits and gets off the stubborn OCA that's there. No, the time for removing OCA on the S8 and especially the S8 Plus is going to be much more time consuming than the older model Samsungs that are flat. They're going to be more similar and probably use an OCA removing sheet like the iPhone. It's just the edge here kind of changes things because the LED itself is a little bit malleable. And as he moves this around, you guys will kind of see indents and waves in the screen and stuff like that. So it just changes the whole process. So we think that the flat model Samsungs will be pretty quick to kind of become compatible with the system just because they're more similar to the iPhones than anything. Oh, Luke Henson, my Luke. George got a hold of me last night and said he has improved this process too. So I suggested that he switch from the cleaning cloths that he's using to more of like a camera type camera lens cleaning cloth, and it cut the time nearly in half. Although he is still working on trying to, like as we mentioned, do the OCA removing process that was similar to the iPhone 6. He's just waiting on getting proper molds in to be able to test that and see how well it works. So this process that he's going through right here is no better or worse than any other system out there. This is just a manual process that just has to take place. This whole video is about 40 minutes with him doing some things he doesn't really need to do in it because he's still pretty new at this. However, 40 minutes for what is normally a $260 to $280 screen, cut down to about $24 pre-labor. So maybe $32, $33 after labor is pretty amazing. All using an OEM LED, all something that never comes out of the frame, so you never have to worry about issues down the road. It's quite incredible, actually. So he's going to plug this in here and just give you guys a test to show that everything's working. You can see it's sped up just slightly. And his next process, he's going to go in this dust-free enclosure here. And you're going to see that there's almost like a mold type thing that looks like some of the old screen protectors that you guys might have used back in the day. And all the mold does is it just aligns that LCD. So when he goes to apply the OCA, which is actually applied to the LED on the edge screens, it just lines it up for you. So that's part of what makes this process different than the Chinese is, well, a lot. But we actually apply the OCA to the LED to get a nice bond that's not as wavy. Or if you apply it to the glass and then you put it in the system, because that LED is malleable, it kind of moves around and it will make the screen appear very wavy, as well as it can create air gaps, and you can have bubbles in the edges of the screens. And especially we heard over time, the OCA isn't really designed to bend around the edge because no one actually uses the original OCA that you're supposed to. So bubbles will start to creep back into the edges of that glass. But with this system here and with the OCA that we've developed, we don't have that issue. So this OCA is a sheet-like OCA. However, it does have some chemical properties that are similar to LOCA. So it's going to cure in UV light. And what that allows us to do is to make an OCA that's not as sticky as standard OCA initially. So that means that we can draw bubbles out much easier and much faster. And then as soon as all the bubbles are drawn out, then we can apply the UV light and fully cure it so bubbles won't come back in. When it is fully cured, It's not like rock hard between there or anything. It's still got quite a bit of give, so it's not going to break any easier than the original one would have dropped. So he's going to peel this sheet off, and then you're going to see him pull it taut so it lines up with the LED here, and then he's just going to give it a roll over. So unlike the iPhones and stuff like that, there's no real area here for a flex cable to get damaged or anything like that if you're rolling over it or anything like that. So. And he is going to rub around the edges to mold that OCA to the curves of the edge there. And then really, he could go straight from this process to placing the glass. He decides to pull it out and mess with it for a minute. Not sure why, but ideally you would be ready to go right to glass at this point. So there still is a protective cover over the top of that ochre there, so you can touch it without it damaging anything. So he's going to pull these little stickers off that don't actually need to come off. So everything that you guys have seen so far, and a lot of stuff you guys haven't, as far as like molds and tools and stuff that are particular per device, are all included in this system. So, you know, that dust-free chamber, there's nothing hiding below that's going to be a converter, a compressor, or anything like that. Everything that's on that table is yours, and then the rest are just like little tools particular to phones. So it's a very small footprint. Those, you know, screen frees and the screen back there are about 12 inches by 18 inches, so they're very, very small. Like I said, they're quiet. And you don't really need a whole lot of space to hold all of this stuff. And they're not very heavy, so it's not going to take an army to move in places if you want to. So you want to make sure at this point not to touch the OCA. And this just lays down. So the frame of this actually kind of acts as a mold because it has little divots on it, on the top and the bottom, kind of like a border. So you're just going to line that in between those, drop the screen down. And then it's going to go into the screen back. The Samsung models will stay in the screen back for about 2 minutes longer than the iPhones. That's because they get that UV process applied at the end of it for about 2 minutes. So as you guys can see, we're just over 30 minutes into this process right now. Again, this is the longest Samsung that you guys will encounter. And from here on out, this is just going to sit in the screen back, like I said, and it'll be completed. So it's a good time now to ask questions about the system overall and everything that you guys have seen. We will talk about consumables and pricing and stuff like that and stuff like that here shortly. So if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can just type in the box and we will answer them for you. Well, until a question comes up here, I'll talk about the training. So anyone that purchases the system, training is concluded for free. So it's something that you guys can come to Austin, Texas, where I'm located, and get a full day worth of training. I think you'll find that if you guys have any refurbishing experience at all, you would show up and within 2 hours be like, I didn't need to come here. But we also do offer video training classes online, so sort of like manuals and stuff like that can be used. If for some reason you're part of a corporation that buys several, I'd be more than happy to go out to you guys and train with your actual systems, as long as you guys cover the cost for me. The Samsung models that are currently supported are just S7 Edge, S8, and S8 Plus. We are working on Note 4, Note 5, Note 8, and S5, S6, and S7. So we're hoping that those will be compatible at launch, if not shortly after. Mixed in with the iPhone 10 there, that is certainly our most, the next thing that's really important to us to become compatible. All of those Samsungs will also be done in frames, so you're not going to have to pull the LEDs out. After that, and we're compatible with everything that's on the market now. Eventually, we'll probably start looking into like LG models and other things like that. But we're just going to go down the list and kind of take, whatever our customers say of what they want to see next and see if we can work with them.
Quick question.
Yeah.
For the credits, do you see the cost of the credits going down, or are you guys gonna increase the credits depending?
Yeah, the credit price will never increase. I can say that for sure. Whether or not they would go down would kind of depend on the market overall. If we saw a decreased use in the system or a copy a couple years down the road or something like that. But we don't have any sort of plans to increase or decrease credits for the foreseeable future. We are working on some sort of tiered program where, based on volume, either for you or as your company as a whole, if you guys own several businesses and stuff like that, it would reduce the price up to 20% based on volume, although that volume would have to be pretty high. So you guys can see this S8 is done here. We do understand that, this does cost a little bit of money, but at the same time, that money goes towards, research development, hardware updates, software updates, stuff like that, as well as quite a bit of, research and design that we've already paid for the system is getting paid off. So we don't actually make any money from the sale of this system. If anything, we lose like 50 or 60 bucks. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to make this system able to get into the hands of all the different repair shops out there and subsidize it. But really, if we were just to sell this system outright, we'd be looking at probably like close to $20,000 for everything that's gone into it for us to actually become a profitable company. But we realized that really wasn't, the best way to put this out there because not a lot of people would get it. So we had to kind of come up with a way that would allow us to make money, continue to innovate, as well as get the system into the hands of the most repair shops as possible. So yeah, as you guys, work and do more volume, that's something we'll definitely consider as a tiered program. We haven't nailed anything down yet, so don't quote me on any sort of price or volume or anything like that, but that is something that we are considering.
Have you guys considered including third-party resellers for this equipment?
I am a third-party reseller, I guess, for the U.S. So we are.
It's just going to be you guys?
Yeah. So Luke's actually part of, the main team for gTool. I am the U.S. distributor for, U.S. and Canada. I'm sorry. We are or will be discussing with certain people, possible, I guess, referral partners might be the best way to put it. So depending on who you are and what your deal is and, what kind of business you have and stuff like that, we might have referral partners that'll get some sort of like referral code that will receive some sort of benefits for helping move the system. But as you can see, there's a lot of knowledge and information that goes into the system, not only what you guys see here, but the underworkings of what has gone into creating this and why it's different and all that sort of stuff. So it does take someone very, knowledgeable not only on the system, but on refurbishing and all that sort of stuff. So it takes someone special to really try and move this system with a lot of knowledge. So if that's something you're interested, you can shoot me an email at vince@gtool.com, as well as you guys with any other questions. And that's something that we can discuss, moving forward. So it is worth pointing out as well that these systems do need to be serviced. They need to be serviced about every 2,000 screens. And what you're servicing is actually an oil filter as well as a water condensing collector. They're very cheap. It's about $15 for the parts. The repair itself takes about a half an hour, but it does need to be done in an authorized repair center. So we plan to put an authorized repair center in the top 50 cities within the U.S. So it's in a short drive to most people within the United States. Those authorized repair centers will be selected from people who purchase the system. So if you guys are in the first, say, 2 batches of people that purchase the system, the odds of you guys becoming a authorized repair center are much higher. And the reason we're doing that is just because, as I said, the system is really a $20,000 system. We don't want people opening up and changing things that they have no idea about the technology that's inside of it and damaging it. So the people that are authorized repair centers are going to get special training through special courses to become familiar with how to repair something. If it needs service or if something fails in the system, it's going to pop up on your app or on the LCD screen that's on top. It's going to be like part number 4359 failed. And then it's going to shoot an email to your closest rep and says, hey, Luke's system went down. It needs part number 4359. It's going to load up the actual repair video for that particular part, and it's going to automatically ship that part to him. So we're going to try and really reduce the amount of time frame here that you're out of a system. And that's the best thing we can come out with without just letting everyone go inside of it. Obviously, we're also trying to protect a lot of the intellectual property that's in the system, and people that are repair specialists and stuff like that will have to sign special paperwork to be able to work on these. With that being said, gTool is not going to make a dime off of any service or repair. So it's going to be $15 for the part. Throughout the first 2 years of the warranty, we're going to cover the services, and we're going to cover anything that goes wrong with it. After that, everything's going to be a set fee to these repair centers. So you're not going to get gouged. We're not making money on it. So to kind of keep things streamlined, all the prices will be presented online. Remember, again, our goal is to keep you guys in a system that's working. We want to make things affordable for you. We want the person who's repairing it to get what's fair for them. And this is kind of the best thing we can come up with to kind of keep everyone happy. Yeah, so the system, as Luke mentioned, is only in South Africa. Luke will be getting one in Australia, and I'll be getting one here in America sometime in early to mid-November. And we're going to start, hopefully, trying to start use those systems to train some of the people who have purchased the system and haven't received it yet. So the delivery date for the first batch is December 5th week. So it could be a little before, it could be a little after. That all just depends on shipping time and customs and all sorts of things. We are pretty much in second batch now. We might be able to squeeze one in the first batch, and that really just depends on the invoices we have out, if they're paid or not. So we have about 11 invoices out that haven't been paid yet, that have till Monday to pay on them. If they don't, then the next person in line gets sucked in. We already have one person in line right now. So, like I said, we are towards the end of these demos. We do have, as Luke mentioned, we're going to the ERC convention at the end of the month to do a lot of live demos and training and stuff like that. So the issue is that the cryogenic engines that are in these are very complex, and we can only produce approximately one a day at this time from the factory we're working with. So about every batch of 50 will take approximately 2 months. And as we get closer to ERC, we really might end up being quite back ordered on this system. But the reason we wanted to keep those lots small is because these are actually manufactured or built in their own gTool factory in South Africa. And that allows us to keep a higher quality control on these systems. Every machine that comes out has a plaque that's on it. It says who built it, it says who quality inspected it, and it has your serial number on it. So again, the quality and actual production of these systems is very important to us. Luke Nealon, where are you located? Are you in the UK or are you in the US? Because the UK is going to be a little bit different than the US here. Yeah, the UK. So, we're not really doing a full launch in the UK yet. So anyone that orders there, we will have one repair center in the UK. Depending on where you're located and where they're located, you might have to ship it. And that's just something that you would have to deal with as being an early adopter in a country that we're not doing a full rollout in yet. Luke is in charge. Other Luke is in charge of the Australia, UK, all of sort of the international markets that aren't on North America here. So his email is just luke@gtool.com. And I would definitely have a discussion with him, and I can talk to you more about possible UK market. No, I don't know. That's a question for Luke, but I think that's something that he might still be working on. So, all right. So go ahead and ask some questions for my Luke on here, and I'm going to pull up some pictures for you guys here in a moment. If it's not something that he can answer, then it'll just stay on here, and when I come back, I'll take care of it for you guys. Yeah, I'll explain the credits here. So the credits are broken into two $3 credits. One is used in the screen-free system. One is used on the screen-back system. And the reason we broke it into two $3 credits rather than one $6 credit is so that you could use those systems independently of one another. So you could constantly running the screen freeze with this particular phone and then the screen back with a different phone. And the credits are just used as a royalty program, hardware as a service to help bring us money and to continue to innovate, as well as to be a profitable company. As I stated earlier, we don't make any money. We actually lose a little bit of money after shipping and everything with the system. So the only really way to make money that was feasible for us and you guys is to charge a little bit of a credit. Some things, obviously, it wouldn't make sense. It's not going to make sense to do an iPhone 5 with a system unless you really care about the quality or you're running out of a part or something. It can definitely be used as a backup. But the newer phones get, the more benefit the system has. So obviously, iPhone 7 is a little more beneficial. The iPhone 8 is going to be very beneficial. The iPhone 10 is going to be crazy beneficial. And then the Samsungs are all going to have a huge benefit. So we started developing this system, as I said, 18, 19 months ago. And we started having ideas with the fingerprint issue not working and then possibly eventually putting the fingerprint into the LED. And the only way being able to repair a phone and keep a fingerprint scanner working would be to refurbish that actual customer's LED in their phone. So not even just refurbishing, but refurbishing their own. And that's what we started to build this system on. And that didn't happen this time around. It certainly could happen in the future. But the more expensive phones get in the future, the more valuable the system is going to be. So you can imagine in 2 years, instead of stocking, iPhone 5, iPhone 6, 6S screens, you're going to be stocking, iPhone 10, iPhone 11, Note 5, Note 8, S8, S9 screens. Like all the screens that are going to be in the industry are going to be really expensive screens. So this is going to help, with cash flow quite a bit. And, I don't want to jump the gun, but it definitely could be something that if you're not refurbishing in this industry in a couple of years, you may not have a very good chance of surviving. So, equipment, new source, special shipping, container box. Yeah, it's definitely, I'm sure it's going to come in a nice shipping thing, as Luke mentioned here. All right, so I'll share some pictures here with you guys. All right, so first picture is the iPhone 8 back glass. So we don't have this confirmed yet. It's because we have to get a lot of iPhone 8s in to test some good, some broken, all this other stuff. But you guys can see that we do have the capability of doing it without damaging the frame or anything there. So take this with a grain of salt. We are working on it. Right now it does look good. But we're not putting our stamp of final approval on it yet, as we don't want to do that with anything until we are 100% confident that it will work and it'll continue to work in time. The next is a picture of the iPhone 7 consumable that we're using. So for those that are familiar with different qualities of glass, you can see the nice deep blue ring that's around the camera hole there. So this is really the best glass that we could find. They are cold pressed, as well as you guys can see, if you're familiar with them, how nice and original the frame is that's on there. So the little screw holes don't look spiky around the edges. It's just a nice clean center. There's no extra parts around the frame there that aren't supposed to be there. So the consumable quality is definitely really important to us. So we didn't want to spend all this time and money developing this awesome system and then give you a piece of garbage consumable at the end. So this next picture is the iPhone 6 glass that we took off in the beginning of the video. And this really goes to show how well this system does at removing all of the glass kind of in one piece. So if this was the wire system, where your wire is going to be getting caught up on all of those shards of glass, you're going to have hot glue with glass stuck in it all over the place to step on, to put your fingers into. The polarizer is going to be absolutely destroyed, and that's going to be removed. If you're doing this a freeze system, you're going to be sitting there picking at a card with it from the side. Glass is going to be shooting everywhere. It's really difficult to do, and odds are you're probably going to scratch the polarizer as well. But with that DRM system, that display restore module, we're able to seal all that glass in one piece, and then we're able to slide that card in that gets everything up perpendicular in one nice motion. Let me see. Yeah, let me show the rest of these pictures here real quick. So this is a picture, the infamous picture online that has like 1,000 replies or something like that. But it's an iPhone 7 Plus glass that came off again in one nice sheet. So we are able to show again here how well the system really works, even for the plus size models. And the final picture that I will share, this is one component, interior component of that screen vac machine. So you can see how well engineered this is. This is just the top piece there. But the wires are color coded. Everything is put together nicely. You don't have hoses and stuff going all over. So from an engineering and design standpoint, it's very nice. From a repair standpoint, it's very nice. All those like valves and fittings there are numbered. So, you know, really putting quality into the build of the system was extremely important to us. So you're not only just paying for a piece of equipment, you're paying for a Mercedes, you know, essentially the Mercedes of refurbishing equipment. All right, you asked me to talk more about the S6 and S7. There's no issue with the S6 and S7 at all. So it's just a time frame thing of you know, which screens we can start testing first, and we just decided to start with the S7 Edge and S8 because they're the ones that get turned away the most in repair shops. So we got the system good and working to where it will work with any sort of phone, and then we decided to start working with the most expensive ones to give the system the most benefit, and then we're just going to work our way down. So the S6, S7, Note 4, Note 5, Note 8 are all going to be very similar as far as they're going to be flat model Samsungs that are all LEDs that are all going to use our OCA. And that's just going to be the next thing that we work on. So it'll come. The system is completely capable of doing it. It's just about getting the molds made for them and doing the testing and finding the right settings. So we are hoping by launch that all of those models I just listed will be available. If not, very shortly after. So there is a holiday in there between, I think for George, December 15th and December 28th or something like that. But he's hoping to get that done before the 15th there. All right, what other questions do y'all have? Oh, you said what other phones are we working on? We will be working on LGs down the line and potentially other things, but that just kind of depends on what the feedback is from people as well. All right, so the consumable prices is the iPhones run anywhere from about $3 to $5. That does not include the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus, which we're unsure on what the price will be on that. But I'm sure it won't be too expensive, and it'll definitely drop in time. The iPhone 5 being the $3 ones and the 7 Pluses being the $5 ones. That does include the OCA. So again, we're trying to keep that consumable cost pretty low to encourage you guys buying the high quality parts from us. The Samsungs are going to range. So the flat model Samsungs will be anywhere from probably $9 to $11. Again, we'll include our special OCA and the mold to lay those down on. The S7 Edge will run about $14 with our OCA. The S8's around $15, and the S8 Plus is around $18. We're constantly trying to get those prices lowered. The Samsung glass does need to be purchased from us, and it is special in a few ways that we can't really discuss. And that's what made them successful with the edges. So it does have a special coating, and there's some sizing differences and stuff like that. It is Gorilla Glass, so it does have the same kind of composition and strength as the original. It's just a little bit different, a little bit special. So again, we'll try and keep those prices low. But for what once was, you know, a $220 to $280 screen for some of these edges to now be, you know, between all in $24 and $30 is pretty astounding. So the S8 glass, and we think Samsungs in the future will not actually have logos on them because screens now are starting to go edge to edge. So there's nowhere to actually put a logo. With the older model ones like the S7s and stuff like that, the ones that we sell here, most likely, although none of this is confirmed yet, will have logos on them. Will not have logos on them. We're trying to see if we can get you guys in contact with our supplier to get them with logos, but you do have to understand from our perspective what we're doing. Apple and Samsung aren't exactly going to love us for what we've created here, and the last thing we want to do is get in trouble for some sort of patent or trademark infringement or something like that that would take everything down. So we do have to be really careful about that. If that's something you guys want to take on, we can work with you to get logo materials. We might have some in one way or another through a partner distributor, but as far as gTool actually carrying it ourselves, probably not. All right, so the system itself is normally $7,000. Right now we are running a special where it's $6,800. It includes 100 free credits and 50 free screens. So the 100 credits is enough to do 50 screens, and we include 50 screens. All in all, that's $1,000 value. And we wanted to allow you guys to be able to work on the system without having to pay for credits, without having to use consumables that you paid for, to be able to learn and try and become proficient on the system before you actually have to invest any more money. So we're really hoping that it'll allow you guys to get a chance to just become familiar with it. We feel like you could be mostly proficient on the system, say 90% proficient after 1 day of use, which is incredible, and 98 or 99% proficient after a week of use on the system. So the payment options are credit card, wire transfer, Bitcoin, check that we can send. Yeah, Amex is fine. We just don't accept PayPal right now. We were at the beginning, but then PayPal decided to hold a whole bunch of our money because a lot started coming in very quickly. And we all know how terrible PayPal can be sometimes. We also offer financing options with BlissPay and Behalf. So if you guys email me again at vince@gtool.com, I can send you those financing options. We are, like I said, really technically sold out of the first batch. Although I do believe if you guys were to get something in quickly, that odds are on Monday you would probably get pushed into the first batch. I just don't want to guarantee anything because right at this particular time we have over 50 invoices out. So that just depends if everyone decides to actually pay by Monday or not. So we have one more demo this evening, and then it will have completed our 2 weeks worth of demos. So. All right. Any other questions? Claudia, do you have a question?
Yeah. When was the second batch going to be available?
So we're looking at the second batch delivery date of about January 31st. So we can't really push it for that. We are locking a maximum of 5 units per any one company throughout these first 3 batches, and that's just to give everyone a fair opportunity and kind of prevent the really big guys from coming in and just being like, we want all 50 and just like screwing everyone else. So these batches are going all over the country, and no one particular company is going to have a stronghold over another. All right, guys. Well, this doesn't conclude the demo here. If you guys have any extra additional questions, feel free to stick around. Luke and I will be here for another minute or two, or you're welcome to email either of us. I will post our email addresses here one more time. And then, like I said, we can get you guys, financing options and stuff like that if you know. So we might send a follow-up email as well, asking what you guys thought about the system, trying to get feedback, as well as what you thought about the demo in general. So, let us know. We're always here to help. For anyone that purchases, there'll be a private little forum and group for everyone to kind of get, updates as they come along, as well as for you all to talk amongst yourselves, as well as to give us feedback as well. We really are working towards improving our image and our brand and our customer service and feedback and everything like that moving forward as a company. So it all starts here, and it starts with you guys, and we appreciate you all taking the time. So that's about it. So again, we thank you guys for coming out, and hope you have a good rest of your day, and hopefully we can all do some business and make some money together in the future. Thanks. I'm going to stop this recording here, Luke.